to Real Life with Holly and Regina, personal growth from our perspective. Really, Regina, it's real life personal growth. That's what this is all about.
Oh, for sure. Holly, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Awesome. Looking forward to this moment.
Me too. I've been woo, just like getting ready. So excited. I love this.
So what are we talking about today, Holly? Because we've got a couple of great things, in our minds already.
We do. And with the Troward teaching series that just launched, that Paul and Jenna are going to be co-teaching coming up. It starts next month, but it starts this month. So
yeah,
I would encourage, we thought we'd spend a little time on one of my favorites, The Spirit of Opulence. So good. An essay written by Thomas Troward back in, I don't know, the 1800s or so. One of the original personal growth pieces. It's so good. And it's something that Paul's a freaking master at, just teaching it. And both of us have heard his teaching on it. And so what we thought we'd do is just kind of break down some big takeaways from our perspective. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Regina? When you started diving into preparing for this, where did your mind go?
Everywhere, because my mind was just everywhere in this. I was thinking about the first time I heard Paul teach this, and I think it was 2018 or 2019. And then he taught it with the 7 levels of character, which just took it from here to here. And, I was in last year's mastermind group, and on day 2, he does this whole teaching on it. And that sort of really got me rolling for Spirit of Opulence and Troward. Not to mention that the first time I came to visit you guys in Florida at the EL studios in September 2020, that's when I did my first Women of EL show with all of you ladies in the studio.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, Paul handed me this book. This is the book Paul put in my hands at the end of the day. And I've only heard of Thomas Troward because of Paul. So Holly, let me share with you my first takeaway and get your thoughts here, because the first takeaway is the first line, okay?
Me too, but you go first.
The first takeaway is the first line. It's this idea that somehow playing small helps us produce good in whatever we choose to do. And I just started laughing because I started thinking about all the times in my own life that I played small, that I kind of shrunk back. And when I catch myself even doing it now, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. And I have to laugh at myself. I'm talking to me first, because anytime I thought, why on earth would any of us think that, I'll just play small and not live into my God-given talents, not live into my God-given potential, and that somehow that's how I'm going to get where I want to go. And that when we operate from this separateness from God, that's sin. And you can just close the book and spend about 5 years
right there.
What do you think about this, Holly? Because that idea is overwhelming to me, and the number of times I've done it in my life.
Well, do you want me to go down the rabbit hole on this for a minute? Because this is where I was going to go. So when I first read that, let me read it again. It is quite a mistake to suppose that we must restrict and stint ourselves in order to develop greater power or usefulness. So when Paul really started breaking this down for me, where I went was this whole idea of prosperity, of wealth. And see, I grew up in the church and in a very conservative family. My father was a minister for a number of years. And I was drilled with the belief that it is holier to be poor. It is more righteous to be poor. Like drilled. Like, let me tell you a story. And this is something I've had to work so hard on overcoming, because it was so ingrained in me. When I would have been less than 6 years old. I would have been probably 5. And I have this memory. It was a Sunday morning. We were getting ready to go to church. And my dad, I just remember him saying, you know what? We don't have enough gas in the car to get to church and back. We have enough to get there, but we don't have enough to get back. And we don't have any money to buy gas. And I just remember like the uncertainty, the fear as a little girl of just like, we're not going to be able to get home. Like what? And his decision was, we're just going to trust God. We're just going to, we're going to go and trust God. And so on the one hand, it was like, okay, it was this holier approach to just go and trust God, but all of this fear and uncertainty just filling my little girl body. And then right before we left, my brother opens the door, and lo and behold, on the floor in front of our apartment door was an envelope, anonymous, no name on it, with this just gift of cash in it. No idea where it came from. And so it was like, so on the one hand, it was like, see, God always provides. So it's like, okay, it's better to lack and then to allow God to provide. But then that fear just gripped me. And it was like, so how is it to be fearful and to be uncertain is better than to be secure, than to be, and I was just like that one experience is just like ingrained in my mind, just the emotional experience. But it's like, since when did God not want us to thrive? Like, since when did God want us to live in struggle? And going through this, preparing for today, again, I said I went down the rabbit hole. I was like, let me just look up. So I looked up some biblical references and some verses. One of them is Psalm 122, verse 6. And it says, they shall prosper that love you. Okay, so if I love God, then the promise is I'm going to prosper. And I'm not going to be, sitting in fear and just uncertainty and struggle.
That
like God doesn't want me there.
I could almost cry for that, because there is this tension, Holly, of how some of us were raised, as children, and then you start studying things like Thomas Troward, and even really going down the rabbit hole, like you just said, and you're like, these two ideas, how do you reconcile them within yourself at any age, at any level? And you said that was Psalms 126,
122, verse 6. Another one. Commit. This is also Psalm 16, verse 3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. Okay, so trust the Lord. Go out there. Go for your goals. Go for what it is that you want, with the expectation that it's gonna work, that it's gonna succeed. It's like, this whole idea, and I could go on this for a while, and I won't go too long, but when I hear someone say, oh, well, it just wasn't God's will for that to work out. It's like, okay, you're using God's will. Aren't you a co-creator with God? Like, don't you get to co-create your life with God?
We have to do our
your
part?
role?
Right, don't we? Yeah. We have a part.
We have a part to play. And so if something doesn't work out, oh, it just wasn't God's will. Really? Like, God didn't want you to succeed. God wanted you to be in struggle. Like, that's really what God wants? Really?
It's ridiculous.
And it was just like, literally just reading that one sentence in the book just got me going. I was just like, wow.
This sentence is everything, because I was saying a moment ago that when I was the first time with you guys in Florida at the Empowered Living offices, Paul puts this book in my hand at the end of the day. Well, just 24 hours before this, I was at the airport. I came in the day before, and I remember I was at the airport sitting there looking at the sign that said West Palm Beach. And I thought to myself, who do I think I am going? Hand to God. I went through the whole motions of the day. I remember I had to drive myself to the airport because Roger couldn't. So I'm driving to the airport. I'm at the airport and I'm thinking, who am I to do this? And I did everything. I'm at the gate. I had to talk myself in to getting on the plane. I had to talk myself in the rest of the day. It was the most in my head day that I've had in recent memory. Who am I? Why me? I don't have anything to offer. All of that going through my mind. And then at the end of what was an amazing day with you guys, it was an amazing day. Paul even puts me on the show 15 minutes before the noon show. He says, Regina, come sit with us. I said, okay. And then I'm in Heather's office sweating bullets because I'm questioning everything in my head. Like, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to watch you guys. And I'm fighting inside so much of that day. I was restricting and stinting and afraid to move into it the whole day. And then when I leave, Paul puts this book in my hands. I'm in my hotel room that night and I'm reading through it.
It's crazy.
That was one of the most powerful days that I've
Wow.
had in all of this, that still, like, they don't want me there. Why am I going? Do they know that I'm coming? What will I say? What will I do? What if it's bad? No, let me
Mhm.
play it safe. I was arguing with myself the whole day. The entire
Mhm.
day I was fighting with myself. So this first sentence is
Mhm.
like, could be the story of our lives in a lot of ways.
In many, many, many ways. And it's, one of the, I have so many notes, like if you
I
can
know,
see,
right?
I've just like
2 pages.
all over the place. And I've got my to-do list that says, you got this. It's like my little pep talk to myself.
Love that.
But one of the things I said, this is, restricting and stinting ourselves. So it's equal to, playing the martyr, to letting other people have theirs, as if there's not enough for me to have mine as well. It's like, and then the next sentence, can I go on for a sec, Regina? It's, this is to form the conception of the divine power of God as so limited that the best use we can make of God is by a policy of self-starvation, whether material or mental. So like God, if we were to live into our full potential, it's like we're too big for God. That's basically what we're saying when we are trying to like restrict ourselves. Well, God needs us to play small because that's all he can handle.
Right.
And like, no.
It just makes no sense. And it's
No sense at all.
It's laughable that why on earth would I think that?
Yeah.
Gosh, this is like a little jab almost
Yeah.
from the way
Yeah.
that I was living. And, I've stepped out of quite a bit of that, but it can still be a street fight some days.
Oh my gosh.
It can
Yeah.
still be a street fight some days. I'm
Yeah.
just willing to do the fighting. Whereas
Yeah.
before, I was like, no, you want somebody else. You don't want me like Moses. No,
Yeah.
you've got the wrong girl, God.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, in the last few months, and I've shared some of this with you, Regina, but like in the last few months, it has been a really critical, I would say, period of time, really intense period of time in my own personal growth. And like, so going back to that story I shared when I was a little girl, 5 years old, like I realized, when we restrict ourselves, we stint ourselves, that's what was happening there. It was, we're not enough. So we have to, and it's confusing because on the one hand, yes, we do need to rely on God, and yes, he is, but he's made us to be co-creators with him. It's not that we're, poor me, I'm just so bad and I can't do anything on my own. It's like, well, but with God, it's like, it's not God doing everything for me. He's given me a role to play, like you said.
That co-creator, it's that co-creator that you just said, Holly. It's our role and God's role. I have to do mine and I can't do his.
Yeah.
But he needs me to do mine.
Yeah, it's like, but and he wants us to do our part. That's the thing. He doesn't just, I mean, maybe technically he doesn't need us, but he created us in such a way that we have free will. We get to do our part in it.
Right.
And so in order to create what it is that we want to create, we have to create. Like we have to step into it. We have to. And so restricting ourselves and stinting ourselves. So when I was in that place, I was filled with that fear and that uncertainty as a little girl. And that stuck with me. Like even to recent months, I have had to work really hard because I realized in different scenarios in my life, in different dynamics, I would like reduce myself down to that little fearful girl. And just the decisions I was making was coming from that place of fear rather than coming from the place of, no, I am full, I am whole, I am perfect in who I am right here. And I'm exactly where I need to be. And it's not that fearful, scared, insecure little girl. It's right. No, it's just like the difference when you step out of that, you realize, okay, I don't need to be in that place of restriction, that place of fear.
Relief. It's a relief to understand this and to continue to understand it. And when he talks about realizing, I think about this idea of realizing my own riches. So that when I'm practicing self-judgment, I'm out of alignment with understanding my own richness. And I think when we're in that comparison trap game, that's when we're taking away from all of this, even at a higher level, because he says all things are mine. He says, right, all things are yours. All things are mine. And when I'm
Yeah.
getting away from that, I'm somehow just taking away from this relationship with my oneness, my awareness of my oneness with God. And I even wrote a
Yeah.
sticky note on my computer because we started talking about this a few days ago.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a little note to remind myself, how am I honoring the spirit of opulence today? How am I honoring it? How am I staying connected to my awareness of my oneness with God? And I guess another sticky note is, how did I dishonor it today? How did I see myself as separate?
Separate.
This is
I mean,
is crazy. Even now, I'm like,
yeah, there's so much to take in. And the beautiful thing about this, and I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna give a shameless plug for the program, because there's so much depth in this. It's like, even just now, I feel like, in the last 15 minutes, I've gotten more from this than I've gotten new things from this than I've ever. And so it's like, you've got to, if you're watching, you've got to plug into this study, because the way Paul and Jenna bring it to life is insane. And every time, and when you get into the study, you don't just get the live teaching, then you get the recording, and every single time you go back, it's going to be new awarenesses, new aha moments. It's going to, your level of awareness is going to increase and increase and increase. That's how it works. You're going to see new things. It's just, you've got to get in it. You've got to get in it.
You have to. And one of the things, and I remember the first time when Paul gave me this book, and even at our mastermind group, Paul said, okay, when you read it, you have to substitute we for I. So it is quite a mistake to suppose that I must restrict. Okay, well, that's in the womb. I was right. I can't.
No.
Okay, now you just insulted my wounds.
That
Paul.
hurts.
But it's so powerful that way, is it not, Holly?
It is. What's real? I just happened to tell you this story, Regina. What's so cool, and I'm so grateful. One of the people I'm most grateful for in my life is my mom, and she has just poured into my life in so many ways. And when Caleb and Emerson were little, like Emerson in his first year, and then Caleb would have been 1.5 to 2 years old, and she looked after them full time. Her and my sister looked after them full time for a year, and every single day for that year, my mom would read The Spirit of Opulence to the boys. But she would not just read it to the boys, she would put their names in it. So she'd read it once for Caleb, then she'd read it for Emerson. And I'm just like, what? Like, that makes me want to cry. Just that's
the most so beautiful gift. That is such a beautiful gift that these boys have grown up with. And I mean, even we were talking, I think it was one of the first or second nights we were out to dinner, how awesome it is for Caleb and Emerson to grow up in this prosperity consciousness. And so for your mom to start that with them, and then I think about what you and Paul are pouring into them. You wish for every child to know that growing up. That is so beautiful what mom did for them.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of many things, but that is one thing that just always stands out to me. But yeah, so it's a special piece of writing. It really is. And when you hear Paul teach it, I mean, I've heard him teach it probably at least a dozen times, probably upwards of 20 times. Every single time, so many notes and new notes, different ideas that come to mind.
It just doesn't get old. And I mean, we could talk about this all day, and I know that we can't. And I thought, just real quick, I thought about when the giving, start from where you are with the giving. And I thought, what that makes the playing field even for all of us.
Exactly.
Because people think, well, I don't have anything to give yet. Can you give a prayer? And I think about my mom, who loves to bake, and she does that. And I mean, at one time, Roger and I were like, we cannot accept any more baked goods from my mom. We've got to practice on some other people, and we can't. And then we just said, we would never say that to my mom. If we don't want it, we would give it to a friend or a neighbor. But this is
banana bread. I can just say your mom's banana bread is the best I've ever had.
That's her way of giving, when I talk, when I say, I'm going to go to Florida. Okay, let me make your friends some banana bread.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
My mom's method of giving.
Yeah.
That's the means by which she can give best. And so when Troward instills this idea, when we read his words about we can start where we are, we can start by being this, start distributing now. It's just so, it's so perfect because every single one of us can play.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like you said, can you give a prayer? Can you, send energy to someone, put your thoughts on someone, help them, it's just like, it's not just the monetary, it's not just the physical, there's the emotional support, there's the mental, there's the spiritual support, all of it. And he says, the physical is the lowest level, actually, it's all of these other, it's a spiritual, that's the highest level. It's like, we all have that. We all have access to that.
It fills you up. Talking about it even now, and I hope everybody listening, it fills you up. How can you be in a bad mood or have a bad day when you're studying Troward? You can't. He makes you believe in the possibilities, and he connects you, reconnects you back to your oneness with God. It's the most beautiful thing. This is one of my
very favorites. Yeah. Well, that wraps us up for today, Regina.
Already?
I know. Time flies. Time flies when you're having fun. But again, if you aren't in the Troward study yet, you gotta get in. You really do.
Get in now.
Yeah, I'm sure someone's putting a link in the comments now, but you've got to check it out. But anyway, thanks so much for joining us for Real Life with Holly and Regina. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.